So, while I was filming this episode, I had turned off all of my Wi-Fi and connectivity to the internet, and America lost its mind. So when I was done and turned everything back on, it all hit me like a ton of bricks, and I felt the need to redo the intro to this video. This is too important not to be talked about. The world around us is broken. It has been for a really long time. That's why the stories we tell are so very important. Stories can change us. They give us new perspectives, new ways of looking at things. They help us to see past ourselves. Stories inspire us, and they create that desire for a happy ending in our own lives. We need good stories now more than ever. This changes nothing for me in my quest, except to further my resolve, so thank you for being here. I am so grateful for you. And now, onto this episode. Love you, friend. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the next episode. Glad you could join us. Hopefully my hair cooperates long enough for me to get a take in without messing myself up here. In this episode, we're talking about something that is utterly important to your character, and you're probably going to want to have your player's handbook handy, so go ahead and grab that. When thinking through your character, one of the best places to start is knowing what they're going to be capable of. And crazily enough, in D&D, this comes down to just 6 numbers. That's right, 6 numbers. Crazy, right? And when meeting with your DM for character creation, you will often roll the dice to determine what these 6 numbers are. So if you have this, turn to Chapter 7. But Bodhi, you're going out of order. How can you do that? First, I like to talk about concepts, and then I like to talk about application. So this video is concept. The next 2 videos after are application. 6 abilities provide a quick description of every creature's physical and mental characteristics. And then it jumps right into the description of what these 6 characteristics are. But before we do that, again, maybe a little background information will be helpful to you. The point of assigning a number to an ability score is that it informs you of how naturally talented, or not, your character is in a certain field. The higher the number, the greater your character's talent in this specific area. The primary reason this number exists is to provide your character with a numerical bonus. Remember how I said this game is your imagination, your choices, and then having it boil down to a dice roll to see if you succeed? These numerical bonuses are applied to the 3 primary rolls you will make throughout this game. Ability checks. These are the skills our characters use to engage the world around them. Saving throws, or how well our characters react to incoming danger. And 3, attack rolls, or how well our characters land hits with their weapons or magic. Every single one of these will rely on one of those 6 ability scores. So how we use them is as follows. Roll your d20, add the applicable ability score modifier, then compare the result against a target number needed to succeed set by the DM. This number is called the difficulty class, or DC for short, and merely refers to the set number needed to succeed or fail in a certain instance. As an adventurer, the highest ability score that you can have is 20, whereas certain monsters or divine beings, or not so divine, can have a total of 30. 30 is the maximum number for just about anything in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. 10 is our base, which would give you a modifier of 0, which would mean that your character is average at said ability. And then, for each even number above 10, you would get a +1 in that modifier. So at 12 you get 1, 14 you get 2, 16 you get 3, etc., etc. Again, to a maximum of 20, which would be +5. And then subsequently, for every odd number going down, you lose an ability score. So the same works in retrograde. 16 to 15, from 3 to 2. Or, if you have a negative ability score, you start getting a negative modifier. 9 minus 1, 7 minus 2, 5, 5 minus 3. The mechanical benefit comes into play when you engage a particular ability score to the activity you're trying to attempt. So say, for instance, you go to swing your sword, as the adventurer that is, unless you're into HEMA. Having a higher strength score, which is the first of the abilities that we'll cover, hold on, we'll get there, will mean you're more likely to land your hit, cut past any armor or hide, and deal damage to the monster to hopefully overcome them. Also, I should note, your character is not going to be thinking about these ability scores. This is nonsense to them. In fact, your character is probably just thinking, I'm going to swing my axe at that monster trying to kill me. Interestingly enough, you probably have these scores too, but you've never thought about them until now. Unless you've escaped the Matrix, figured out what your scores are, and then decided to come back, in which point, Why? And one of the funny things is, most players that I encounter that have worked with these stats for a little while begin thinking in terms of these stats for themselves, other people. I wonder what Dave's ability scores are. And usually the easiest ability scores for us to detect would be the highest and the lowest that a character would have. We'll talk more about that later. But back to the main point. These numbers only matter to you and the DM. That's it. So, with that understanding in place, let's go ahead and dive into what these 6 ability scores are. And the skills, saving throws, combat techniques, and magics that employ them. The first 3 all have to do with the physical characteristics and capabilities of your character, whereas the last 3 are more determinate of the mental, relational, and social capabilities of your character. First up, strength, measuring physical power. Strength, being strong, right? The only skill associated with the strength ability is athletics. This will determine how capable your character is when it comes to climbing, running, swimming, pulling, shoving, those things. Body stuff, roar! Weapons are likely heavier and needing some momentum to actually deal damage. Axes, larger, thicker swords. Spears, clubs. There are some weapons that can be thrown using strength, say javelins or hand axes. Now, in terms of a saving throw, strength saves would often look like reactively using your strength to prevent yourself from being knocked over, or off a ship, a waterfall. Whereas dexterity, which is next up, and we often shorten this to be dex, often measures how agile, nimble, or quick your character is, how graceful they are, or how good their hand-eye coordination is. There are 3 skills associated with the dexterity ability score. Acrobatics, which really has to do with how well your character can balance, find themselves not falling over off of things, if you ever have to walk a tightrope, or if you're on a ship and it's a little dodgy at sea. Did I just say dodgy? I don't think I've ever said that before. Sleight of hand. This would be your character's ability to pick a pocket, or subtly let off a spell. Perhaps they like street magic. And third, stealth. This is your character's ability to sneak around undetected, or be quiet and not make noises. If you're going to try and steal from a dragon, you don't want them to see you. They're probably gonna see you. Dex weapons, also called finesse for the purposes of rules and mechanics later on, would be thinner or lighter swords like rapiers or short swords, sabers, daggers, knives, darts, or anything that requires aim, like a bow or a crossbow. It should also be mentioned too that having a higher dexterity score means that you're more likely to dodge out of the way of incoming blows yourself, which means enemies are going to have a harder time hitting you. And if they can't hit you, they can't deal damage to your HP. That's good. We'll talk about HP with Constitution. Don't worry yet. Dex saves are all about your character reacting in time to dodge out of the way of some imposing danger. Think the spear trap and dart trap in Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark, or a falling ceiling, or a boulder chasing you. The third of these abilities is Constitution, or healthiness, hardiness, how sturdy your character is. Measuring endurance. There really aren't any skill benefits to the Constitution ability. However, it should be noted that having a high Constitution means your character is going to have more HP. HP means hit points. Health points, kind of the same thing, doesn't really matter. HP. Having higher HP means that your character can last longer in a fight before dying. That's not fun. So yay! The other important thing for Constitution is the ability to concentrate. This mostly comes into play when it comes to spellcasting, a wizard or sorcerer, warlock, bard, cleric, druid, any of those things. Wow, yeah, you'll get that list later. All of these classes have the ability to cast magic, and some magic requires you to concentrate on the spell for an extended period of time. If you take damage, you have to roll a concentration check to see if you can maintain that concentration, otherwise the pain is too much and you drop the spell. Not good! In the same breath, a Constitution score that is higher is more likely to be able to fend off illnesses, disease, poison. Hopefully none of which happened to you. These would be your con saves. Poison, diseases, resisting it. Now that we've gone through the first 3 ability scores, let's talk about the second 3. Second 3? Last 3. First up on this list is intelligence. Measuring reasoning and memory. Does wearing glasses make your character more intelligent? I don't know. That's up to you. There is a distinction I want to make here because oftentimes I hear people try and talk about intelligence as how book smart or how well learned your character is about something. Instead, I'd like to think that how intelligent your character is really based upon how quickly they can pick up something new, mostly to do with the realm of logic, understanding, puzzles, reasoning, those things. There are 5 skills with intelligence attached to them. Arcana, that has to do with everything magic. History, understanding the lore of the world around them, political differences, geography, all of that stuff is tied into intelligence. Investigation. This has everything to do with your character being able to pick up on subtle clues that might have been left behind on a crime scene, or perhaps a great struggle that your party has come across. Need to figure out which document is a forgery? That's investigation. Nature. Nature is pretty much, just that. It's about knowing things about nature. If you're a botanist, guess what? You're probably proficient in nature. And 5th, Religion. Understanding the religious cosmos and all of the things that are associated with it. Be it from different churches, different gods, patron saints, that all falls under the religion umbrella. Some individuals use intelligence to cast magic, and the higher their understanding or knowledge of said spells means that magic is going to be a little more dangerous. Same concept for swinging a weapon or shooting a bow, but with magic. Intelligence saving throws are all about you resisting some magical force that is going to try and remove your ability to reason and logic, which, if affected, could leave you unable to think or act, i.e. stunned or paralyzed. Not good. Fifth on our list is wisdom. Wisdom is often described as street smarts, survival instincts, your ability to comprehend via your 5 senses, your intuition and experiences, both of yourself and others you encounter and talk to, measuring perception and insight. If intelligence is you solving a puzzle, wisdom is understanding what happens as a result of it being solved. Think spidey sense. If that doesn't help, high intelligence characters would have a lot of head space, whereas high wisdom characters likely are going to have more heart space. They're going to value emotional intelligence, empathy, and listening, which includes body language. Overall, wisdom is about how sensitive your character is. Sensitive being the 5 senses they can use to interpret the world around them. Skills associated with wisdom, there are 5. Animal handling, their understanding of whether an animal is mad at you and about to attack, or docile enough to actually maybe even let you pet it. Who knows? Always check with the owner first. Consent is important. If it's wild, roll initiative, unless you succeeded at your animal handling check. Insight. Insight is all about reading other people. High wisdom characters are going to be hypersensitive to how something is being said as opposed to just what is being said. And as we know, 70% of what we say is nonverbal? That's a high percentage. The better you are at wisdom, the more of that percentage you're going to pick up. 3. Medicine, your ability to understand how medicine works, what kind of injuries the body has taken. Granted, it's not a genius to understand when someone's been decapitated, but for all the other wounds, medicine is very important. Need to set that bone before trying to heal up the wound? Roll your medicine check. Perception. This is probably the most used skill I have seen my players employ in trying to save their own booties. From anything to sight, sound, taste, touch, smell, all of these things rely on your 5 senses, which allow you to perceive, ergo the word perception, the world around them in order to make sure that they have all the information they need. If that group is trying to stealth up on you, roll that perception check. Trying to listen through the door? Perception. Trying to note that taste of poison in your friend's goblet? Perception again, my friend. Let's hope your con is high enough to withstand the poisonous effects. And 5th, survival. This is your character's general understanding of how to stay alive when in the midst of the wilderness. You might be thinking, shouldn't nature be tied to that somehow? It could be. That's up to you in character selection. But you don't have to know everything about the wilderness to survive it. Also, if you've never had any practical experience, you can have all the knowledge in the world, but if you can't light a fire, you're gonna freeze. Some individuals rely on wisdom for their spellcasting abilities, just like the intelligence casters. It works the same way, I promise. In terms of wisdom saving throws, these used to be called will saves in other versions of the game, and have everything to do with your character resisting the control or domination of another individual on them. If someone's trying to charm or frighten you, wisdom is the only way to combat it. Failing a wisdom save can result in you being under the control of another individual entirely. That's scary stuff. All that aside, if you have high charisma, you might not be worried about it in the first place. Charisma, measuring force of personality, confidence, swagger, chutzpah. Chutzpah? Oh, Yiddish is awesome. Yeah, putz is a good one too. Sometimes it's most appropriately befitting someone with a high charisma score. See, it all connects. Charisma is widely to do with your character's ability to interact socially. As in, how likely is your character to deliver a stirring speech without the use of presentation tools? Your presentation tool. Maybe. Charisma also plays an important role in spellcasting for several classes. We'll get to that in the 5th video. Remember, this is the 3rd. There are 4 skills associated with the Charisma ability score. 1. Deception. Your character's ability to tell a lie, or hide the truth. Let's be honest, this is gray area for just about everybody. There's certainly right and wrong, then there's a lot of gray in between. Deception can be used for good. I guess most of that is relative in terms of who you're asking about the actual deed done using deception, but again, welcome to the gray area. Intimidation. Feel like getting your way? Are you just not getting what you want? Brandish a sword, yell, shout, scream. This is intimidation. Or make death threats to make your enemies wet their pants. I've seen it at my table. Is it right? Again, we're looking at gray area. Our characters are thrown into terrible situations in which they have to make split-second decisions, and who knows what the results are going to be. 3. Performance. Is your character suave and able to sing lullabies? That's performance. Can they spout poetry and engage an audience for long periods of time? Performance. Or do they like to juggle? Performance. If you need a distraction, bards are useful for something, right? Shade Throne. I love bards. I really do. Last up, number 4, persuasion. Sometimes people don't see it your way. You can use your words. It's okay. You don't have to have a tantrum. Again, some employ charisma for their magical means. It works the exact same as the intelligence and the wisdom casters. And when it comes to charisma saves, these are pretty rare and have everything to do with your character maintaining their own personal boundaries and not allowing the magic to get in the way of their true self. Cool. Hopefully you understand the ability scores. Yeah, that's great and all, but how do you get them? I'm glad you asked. The most fun way is to roll for them. Typically, you would roll 4d6, take the highest 3, which in this case is 5, 5, and 4, which would be 14. And note, this can range from anywhere from 3, that's 3 1s, to 18, 3 6s. That's the best you can roll. And remember, you max out at 20 for a single stat. You can't get higher without the use of magical aid in order to raise that ability score. Ultimately, you're going to roll 6 times, all 4 dice 6 times, taking the top 3 6 times. That will all fall within that 3 to 18 range. This ultimately gives you that adequate snapshot of who your character is. What are they like? Physically, mentally, socially, relatably. One of my rules for rolling, there have been several variations over the years, is that one time, in one of those 6 rolls, if my player rolls a 1, I will let them re-roll that 1 once, in hope of getting a much higher number. After they've used that 1 roll out of the 6 ability scores, that's it. Not till their next character can they do it again. And a side note, there are a lot of different ways of rolling for stats, and we can cover that in another video if that's something you're interested in. Let me know in the comments down below. One last aside on rolling. Should my characters roll really terribly and just not want their stats, at any point I allow them to take the standard array. The standard array is found on page 13 in your player's handbook, and gives you the numbers 15, 14, 13, 12, 10, and 8 to use for your character and their ability scores. It's a decent enough spread and a solid start to a good adventurer. So they have a chance of rolling higher, certainly, but can also roll lower. That's why I do offer the standard array should they not like their ability scores rolled. In terms of understanding all these ability scores, the different classes use them differently. So, depending on what you want, the previous video, knowing where to put those scores is important. And we will cover all of that way more in depth in a future video. Whew, well, that's the video, friends. I hope there was something in there that spoke to you. If so, please do let me know in the comments below. If you liked this video, it would be a huge help to me if you click that thumbs up and that subscribe button. Share it with your friends. My channel cannot grow without your help. If there's something you'd like me to cover or talk about in a future video, again, let me know in the comments below. Or, if you feel so inclined, you can reach out to me on social media. I'm on Twitter at SpartanBodie or Instagram at TheSpartanBodie. In our next video, I think we're going to talk about race. Well, to be fair, races/species, as I think there's a need to understand the difference between the two. All of the focus will be primarily on the player's handbook races as provided, because covering them all in one video, you thought this might have been long. I think there'll be an element of understanding culture in that video too, as it's kind of a major factor when it comes to understanding a race or species. I would even submit that most of the mechanical benefits you get from your race are cultural, not genetic. With that, I know this is coming out early, but I think that Tuesdays are going to be our normal day for posting, so get excited. Put it in your calendars. Get hype. Talk with your grandma about it. Hey, Dale. And as always, remember, adventure's calling. Are you listening? Add the applicable needed to succeed. And then compare the result against a target number set by the DM. Target number needed to succeed. Target number needed to succeed. Then compare the result number needed to, and then target